Hi, I'm Elliot Forrest, and welcome to a special edition of A&E Stage from San Juan, Puerto Rico. It's the 39th annual Pablo Casals Festival. For 3 weeks every year, the prestigious Casals Festival hosts many of the most renowned classical music performers in all the world. They come to Puerto Rico by special invitation, an honor originally bestowed by festival founder Pablo Casals in 1957. As cellist and conductor, Pablo Casals was a musician who rose above his music, finding expression not just in the notes before him, but in the world around him. This year, the Casals Festival presents outstanding performances. From the podium, Lord Yehudi Menuhin conducting London's Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. Musical director of the Casals Festival, the esteemed composer Krzysztof Penderecki, and internationally renowned conductor Waldemar Nelson. Also featured performers, 12-year-old pianist Helen Huang in a virtuoso recital, the German String Trio performing with Puerto Rican pianist Jose Ramos Santana, and in special appearances, violinist Christian Edinger, and distinguished operatic soloists Ida Moser, Bent Norup, and Jorgen Klint, performing with the Puerto Rico Symphony Orchestra and the San Juan Philharmonic Chorale. Stay with us for highlights from one of the world's greatest classical music events of the year, the 39th annual Pablo Casals Festival from San Juan, Puerto Rico. Pablo Casals once said that the greatest of all instruments is the orchestra itself, because of its sense of teamwork. Perhaps that's why the renowned cellist became a conductor later in life. Well, at this year's Pablo Casals Festival, there's another remarkable artist who followed a similar path. At the age of 79, and even during rehearsal, Lord Yehudi Menuhin can barely contain the passion he holds for music. It was 26 years ago that Lord Menuhin shared center stage at this very festival with an old friend.
It was a privilege to make music with Casals. Whether he held a baton or a bow in his hand didn't make any difference. Playing with a man who had such integrity and knew the music and knew exactly what he wanted it to be, which was exactly what I wanted it to be.
Lord Menuhin, like Pablo Casals, acquired a love of music at a very young age. When he was 2 years old, his parents took him to his first symphony concert. When he was 4, he asked for a violin as a birthday gift. Born in New York City of Russian Jewish parents, the pensive young man grew up to become a world-class musician, conductor, and teacher. Casals and Menuhin, two master teachers whose mutual respect made them fast friends, friends who learned much from each other.
It's a joy for me to come to a place that reveres Casals, where he is still a symbol of nobility, of purity, of loyalty, of devotion, and the nicest, purest kind of patriotism.
Tonight, Lord Yehudi Menuhin returns to Puerto Rico to honor the memory of his late friend. He returns as conductor, leading the Royal Philharmonic in its premiere appearance at the festival. Lord Menuhin's first selection, the Hebrides Overture. It was begun in 1829 by Felix Mendelssohn. It was inspired by the melodic sound of the crashing waves he heard while visiting the island of Hebrides off the coast of Scotland. Ladies and gentlemen, the Royal Philharmonic, conducted by Lord Yehudi Menuhin. Royal Philharmonic Orchestra and Lord Yehudi Menuhin with Mendelssohn's Hebrides Overture. When we return to Puerto Rico, the circle will be completed. In the tradition of Pablo Casals, the teacher, Lord Menuhin will introduce two of his own prize-winning students as the Royal Philharmonic Strings play Bach's Concerto for Two Violins. As the 39th Pablo Casals Festival continues, the Royal Philharmonic has come to Puerto Rico as part of the United Nations 50th Anniversary World Tour. For Lord Yehudi Menuhin, this Casals Festival has special meaning as he introduces two of his own principal students, 17-year-old Natasha Lomako and Weiwei Li, age 18. With the string sections of the Royal Philharmonic, they perform Bach's Concerto for Two Violins. Lord Yehudi Menuhin conducting his own students, Wei Wei Li and Natasha Lomeko, and the string sections of the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra in Bach's Concerto for Two Violins. Coming up, an unforgettable performance by pianist Helen Huang. And when we return, the tradition of Casals reflected in the faces and lives of young musicians. Here in Old San Juan, Pablo Casals' legacy lives on. And during the festival, not all the music is confined to the concert hall. Of all the staged performances at the festival, nothing hits closer to the basic spirit than when a youth orchestra plays. One such concert, sponsored by the Musical Arts Corporation of Puerto Rico, was held appropriately enough in the public square, under a tent, within earshot of the Pablo Casals Museum. In honor of Casals, these students, ages 7 to 12, have prepared for weeks. Fingers not yet fully grown try to coax sounds from seemingly reluctant instruments. Diminutive faces concentrate on the sometimes dazzling array of notes that must somehow be translated into melody and harmony. No simple tasks for such inexperienced, although eager participants.
Porque tiene melodía.
The children say that belonging to the orchestra makes them feel special and gives them respect. They're called Los Músicos by their friends. While other children play, Los Músicos have been practicing on their instruments. These children, all from low-income families, would never have had the chance to touch classical instruments if someone had not given them a helping hand.
We pay for the teachers, we buy the instruments, and we give them to the children. And the program is functioning very, very well, as you can see.
Of course, youth orchestras are not just child's play. There are very serious undertones at work. For many children, their experience with classical music will end after a few recitals for friends and relatives. But for others, there will be inspiration and opportunity, perhaps even a career in fine arts. This couldn't happen without the people of Puerto Rico caring enough about Pablo Casals' legacy. Carmen Acevedo is living proof of this tradition. Once a young Puerto Rican student, she is now director of the San Juan Philharmonic Chorale.
The maestro believed in our potential for making wonderful music here on the island. He's listening to us, you know, and hopefully what he's hearing is what he would have liked to have heard.
Casals would ask young students, "Do you know what you are?" Wide eyes would stare back, and he often answered for them. "You are a marvel," Casals said. "You are unique. In all the world, there was no other child exactly like you. You may become a Shakespeare, a Michelangelo, a Beethoven. You have the capacity for anything." Pablo Casals would be proud to know that his festival has invited a young woman to Puerto Rico who personifies his belief. Helen Huang is making her first appearance at the 39th annual Pablo Casals Festival.
When I play, I think every single note is like a different color, and the whole piece it makes sort of like a rainbow.
The secret of a musical prodigy. For 12-year-old Helen Huang, the intricate, complex compositions of the classical masters break down beautifully in her imagination as a flow of colors. At the age of 6, she wasn't tall enough to easily reach the piano bench. But Helen had already astounded audiences and won international competitions. Helen Huang was born in Japan and moved to the United States with her family when she was only a toddler.
When I was about 3 or 2 or 3 in Japan, whenever I came back from church, I would sort of just play the pieces on the piano. Or whenever my brother and sister were playing, I would just sit next to them, you know, just listen. Or whenever they went to a lesson, when they came back, I would say, "You had this wrong note," or "You had this wrong," or something.
She soon graduated from recitals at her local school auditorium, and in time would find herself invited to perform with some of the best orchestras around the world. But between rehearsals at the Centro de Bellas Artes, she's very much a child who enjoys what all young people love to do. Helen travels everywhere with her mother. Recent invitations have taken them to Paris, Japan, Israel, and of course to Puerto Rico for the Casals Festival. When she's not on the road, Helen attends public school in Cherry Hill, New Jersey.
I play around 30 minutes in the morning and 3 hours at night. If I have time in the afternoon, I'll play. But it depends on homework.
And now, the Casals Festival is pleased to present Helen Huang in a special recital. First, performing Chopin's melodic and technically challenging double thirds. Helen Huang continues with one of Felix Mendelssohn's most popular compositions of the Victorian era, the Songs Without Words. Miss Helen Huang in her Casals Festival debut at age 12. Still to come, the Saga of the Flying Dutchman by Wagner. And next, festival musical director Krzysztof Penderecki conducts Prokofiev as the 39th Pablo Casals Festival continues from San Juan, Puerto Rico.
This is the home of the Pablo Casals Festival, San Juan Centro de Bellas Artes. Every year, a number of the world's finest orchestras, conductors, and guest soloists come to perform in tribute to Maestro Casals.
The host orchestra, the Puerto Rico Symphony, is celebrating its 40th season this year. Tonight, festival musical director Krzysztof Penderecki will conduct the stirring work of Russian composer Sergei Prokofiev, the Concerto for Violin and Orchestra No. 1 in D major. Originally composed in 1917, its premiere was actually delayed 5 years until after the Russian Revolution. The genius of Prokofiev combines modern, almost dissonant passages with lush romanticism. Welcome now, Maestro Penderecki. From Germany, the acclaimed violinist Christian Edinger and the Puerto Rico Symphony Orchestra for Prokofiev's Violin Concerto No. 1. Krzysztof Penderecki, violinist Christian Edinger, and the Puerto Rico Symphony Orchestra in a performance of Prokofiev's Violin Concerto No. 1. Later, European conductor Voldemar Nelson conducts Wagner's The Flying Dutchman. And coming up, the German String Trio with pianist Jose Ramos Santana.
We are very proud to be having the Festival Casals broadcast in the United States and in other countries for the second consecutive year. We are very proud, and I know the maestro would be very proud if he were alive also, to know that his music is lasting and his vision is being shown all over the world.
What does it mean to perform at the Casals Festival? Ever since it was founded in 1957, it has meant an honor to already established artists. It has meant encouragement to those on the way up. And it has meant an incredible opportunity for musicians from around the world to perform together. Today, Casals' philosophy is carried on through the creative efforts of one of the world's foremost composers and conductors, Poland's Krzysztof Penderecki. He was born in 1933 in Dębica, Poland. As a very young man, his talent and desire to study music on a higher and higher level led him away from his small hometown to Krakow. There, he mastered the violin, then turned to conducting and composing.
I was a young composer. I thought that I could change people, even through music. I could give the music as a message.
In his 20s, he began to win international competitions.
I try to write every day. I'm getting up and I start to write something.
Among Penderecki's most noted works, Tren Ofiarum Hiroshima, St. Luke Passion, Dies Irae, Polish Requiem, and Clarinet Quartet, which he counts as one of his most significant works.
Sometimes what I said, I would go in some direction which I know is wrong, but just to explore. I mean, and this is the great joy, to explore something, to search and to look for something new, which was maybe never written before.
He regrets that he never met Casals, but knows what he would tell the maestro about following in his footsteps.
I would tell him that I am trying to do what he was doing here. First, to bring the best. To bring to the people the best music in the best possible quality. But also I would tell him that I'm doing what he didn't do, to bring music which is written now, which I think is very important.
Today, Penderecki's work is considered among the best in the world. He is revered for his complexity, his intensity, and his vibrancy. Krzysztof Penderecki became the musical director of the Pablo Casals Festival in 1992.
Before I was asking somebody to come here with Puerto Rico. Where is Puerto Rico? Now, there are people calling me and the big orchestra, they want to come here. I think this is something which I am very proud of, that they should be privileged to come to the Puerto Rico Festival and to be a part of this.
Penderecki's job continues, choosing, inviting, advising the artists for the festival. This year, they include the German String Trio and Jose Ramos Santana. For Santana, who was born and raised in Puerto Rico, the festival has special meaning, because as a boy, he was tutored by Pablo Casals.
I remember the devotion and the enthusiasm that he poured into these concerts. And it's a great responsibility to keep up that tradition. I really try to do my best because it's so special. I mean, the memory of him. And it's so inspiring. I always feel like I am playing to him. He's listening.
And now, Jose Ramos Santana joins the eminent German String Trio to perform one of the first works for a quartet which truly blended piano with strings, the Piano Quartet in G minor by Mozart. German String Trio, and Jose Ramos Santana, performing the Piano Quartet in G minor by Mozart. When we return, a powerful interpretation of Wagner's The Flying Dutchman from the 39th Pablo Casals Festival in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Appropriately, we conclude our coverage of the 39th Annual Pablo Casals Festival in grand style with Wagner's passionate, emotional, and flamboyant opera, The Flying Dutchman. Wagner has adapted the legendary tale of the Dutchman, condemned by the devil to sail the seas forever. Every 7 years, the captain is allowed a brief trip ashore to seek the love of a woman to free him from Satan's curse. Enter Senta, a woman who dreams that her love will come from the seas. Her father, Daland, meets the Dutchman, who offers gold and silver for her hand in marriage. Senta is happy. Her current, less wealthy suitor, Eric, is not. The Dutchman, however, misunderstands Eric's pleas to Senta, and believing that Satan has triumphed again, sets sail. Senta, alone and heartbroken, throws herself into the ocean, apparently sealing the fate of the Dutchman. But as his ship is consumed in the devil's fire, the Dutchman and Senta are reunited in spirit. This great tragic opera is performed tonight by a stellar international cast, with opera sensation Ida Moser as Senta, Denmark's acclaimed Jørgen Klint as her father Daland, and the distinguished Danish singer Bent Norup as the Dutchman. Also appearing are tenor Herwig Pecoraro, mezzo-soprano Annie Schlemm, and tenor Paul Fry. At the podium, conducting the Puerto Rico Symphony Orchestra and Philharmonic Chorale, Maestro Valdemar Nelson, hailed around the world for his interpretation of this timeless classic. Ladies and gentlemen, the Casals Festival proudly presents highlights from Wagner's The Flying Dutchman.
Frist ist um. Und abermals verstrichen sind 7 Jahr. Voll Überdruss wirft mich das Meer ans Land. Ab, stolzer Ozean, in kurzer Frist sollst du mich wieder tragen. Mein Herz ist beugsam, doch ewig meine Qual. Das Heil, das auf dem Land ich suche, nie werd ich es finden. Gleich des Weltmeers Fluten bleib ich getreu, bis eure letzte Welle sich bricht. Und euer letztes Nass versiegt. Wann alle Toten auferstehen, wann alle Toten auferstehen, dann werde ich in nicht vergehen, dann werde ich in nicht vergehen. Wann alle Toten auferstehen, dann werde ich in nicht vergehen, in nichts vergehen. Endet eurem Lauf, hilft Gott an nicht und nimm mich auf. Was frommt der Schatz? Ich habe weder Weib noch Kind. Und meine Heimat find ich nie. All meinen Reichtum biet ich dir, denn bei den Deinen du mir neue Heimat gibst.
Was muss ich hören?
Hast du eine Tochter?
Für wann ein treues Kind?
Sie sei mein Weib.
Wie? Wohl ist recht, eine Tochter sein Weib. Ihr selbst spricht aus den Gedanken. Fast durch die Schwend unentschlossen ich bleib, ihr bleib in großer Zwanken.
Tag ohne Weib, ohne Kind,
ob ich wach oder freude,
nicht fesselt mich,
kann einer willkommener sein.
das das Schicksal, die Qual, aber
Ein Hallenzicken,
wird ich die Heimat
eine Tochter sein Gedanken, ihr setzt mich nicht aus.
vor dem Mond, dich erreicht.
Was ist
Meine
nicht
Schätze dahin,
löst dich, ob ich wach oder träume. Kann
meine Schätze dahin, löst
vor
dem Glück
ich
verweife.
Vollen Zicken,
Sonne,
vollen
meine
Zicken
Schätze dahin, musst ich hören, Gott, was musst ich sehen? Ist Täuschung Wahrheit, ist es Tat? Oh, frage nicht. Oh, gelenke Gott, kein Zweifel, es ist wahr, der unheilvolle Mann ist nicht dahin. Welche Gewalt verführte dich? Welche Gewalt verführte dich so schnell? Das, um zu brechen dieses treueste Herz. Dein Vater hat den Bräutigam, brachte mit, wohl kenn ich ihn. Wer ahnt, was geschieht, doch du bist möglich. Reichest deiner Hand den Mann, der deiner Schwelle kaum betrat. Ich muss! Des Gehorsams, blind wie deine Tat, den Wink des Vaters fandest du willkommen, mit einem Stoß vernichtest du mein Herz. Ich durfte dich nicht sehen, nicht und nicht denken, was du mir einst gelobet, ewige Treue. Ewige Treue hätt ich dir gelobt. Senka, o Senka, meinest du? Mein deine Treue ist getan, und deine Treue, mein Heim. Ich will dich nicht verderben. Entsetzlich, dieser Blick! Sag lieber wohl auf Ewigkeit dem Lande. Und auf das Bild verschwör ich Gott, das muss ich sehen. Auf das Bild, ich soll von Gott, ich soll von Gott, ich soll von Gott, dahin, dahin, sie sind zu Treue. Erfahre das Geschick, vor dem ich dich bewahr. Verdammt bin ich zum gewässlich Skandalose, 10-facher Tod, war mir erwünschte Lust. Vom Fluch ein Weib allein kann mich erlösen, ein Weib, das treu bis in den Tod mir hält. Wohl hast du Treue mir gelobt, doch vor dem Ewigen noch nicht. Ich hätte dich, denn Wiss und Siege, welches das Geschick, das jene trifft, die mir die Treue brechen. Verdammnis ist ihr los. Zahllose Opfer fielen diesem Spruch durch mich. Du aber sollst gerettet sein, willkommen. Erhöh mein Heil in Ewigkeit. Hilfe, retten, retten Sie! Wo kenn ich dich? Wo kenn ich dein Geschick? Ich kannte dich, als ich zuerst dich sah. Du sind mir der gewordest du. Befragt die Meere aller Zonen, befragt den Seemann, der den Ozean durchstrich. Kennt die Schiff
erschreckend aller Fronnen, den fliegenden Holländer nennt man mich.
Maestro Valdemar Nelson and his esteemed soloists take their bows, along with the Puerto Rico Symphony and the Philharmonic Chorale. With the rousing finale of Wagner's The Flying Dutchman, we conclude our coverage of the 39th Pablo Casals Festival for the second consecutive year. We would like to thank Casals Festival musical director Krzysztof Penderecki, the Puerto Rico Tourism Company for its support of this television event, and the festival organization for its cooperation. I'm Elliot Forrest for A&E Stage, wishing you a pleasant good night from San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Accommodations provided by the San Juan Marriott and Stellaris Casino, the Caribbean's newest shining star. Air travel provided by American Airlines, together with American Eagle serving over 30 tropical destinations in the Caribbean.